We're going to get started with what's your name, how old are you, and where are you from?
I'm Gloria, and I'm originally from Rochester, New York, and that's where I live now. And I'm 25. Yeah.
Perfect. And the big question is, how did you become an Elvis fan?
Really early on. I became an Elvis fan, I think back in like 2005. My mom was always playing his albums on the way to church, and we lived like 45 minutes from our church. So I was listening to him constantly and kind of just went up from there. And I actually have a poster up here that's actually above me, and I've had this one in my office since 2005. So it has grown up with me in a way, and I feel crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you're very ambitious. For being 25, you have your own record label or record company. I don't know which way to say it, but like you have Gate Girl Records and you work with a lot of hip hop artists. And so you also, like, if people look at your website, there's a lot of influence of Elvis on there too. So can you kind of explain how you got into that and how Elvis has influenced that journey?
I think it kind of started just with conversations, because there's an influence Elvis has had to everybody. And if you talk to a lot of the rappers or a lot of the folks that grew up in Memphis, either they directly have an influence either for Graceland or their parents carry down stories to them. So a lot of the folks that I work with, like Project Pat, and 3 6 Mafia and the Juicy J team, I ended up just talking to them about Graceland, and one of my favorite songs by Pat is Elvis Presley Boulevard. He did with Rick Ross,
I love that
and it's
song.
a good song. And I was like, what inspired that? What like talk to me about that? And one thing led to another, and we just became really good friends. And I started to learn through him that Memphis is such a special place to so many people. Even when they leave, it's like there's a there's just like a community there that, and I feel Elvis helped fester, like especially when you go to Sun Studio and you read that, like, Elvis was told on certain occasions like you shouldn't be going to these, maybe black focused events, and maybe steer away from the record company who's steering him. He's like, no, I'm going to go because this is my community, and they don't understand maybe that the head offices. But that's really some of the stories I've heard about Elvis through like just talking to folks and talking to folks in the industry that were like, hey, you know what? My mom played him, and I grew up in his music, so it inspired me to want to take care of the city and do what I do. And yeah, there's a mural in Memphis right now that has Elvis in the middle, and it's got all of like the 3 6 Mafia members around it and all the rap legends. And I'm like, that is so cool just to know that, like, if you think about it, he has inspired so many outer layers. It's like peeling back an onion. Like he might have been that core, but like so many people around him, not just management wise, not just fan wise, not just people that saw him, but even like the community just grew from him and just the message he left, I think.
Yeah, I mean, us being like younger white women may not be the perfect people to have the conversation, but it seems like, there is a lot of animosity in the Black community towards Elvis. Like that's kind of a theme, but it seems like you're getting a different message.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's a message that, and it'll cut it to you like this. It's maybe not something that when a reporter sits down, they're even going to ask. I can't sit and I've been looking at interviews, and I've thought to myself, why has nobody asked you guys about Elvis? But when they talk about Elvis, like, no, he's a good dude. He was, there's always going to be history, I think, for everybody. Everybody's going to have misinterpretations of history, but we also think about Elvis, and he came from a time where, like, there was no text messaging. There was no, it was like a whisper train to get information out. And so, oh, I saw Elvis here. Okay, like, it's such and such. So stories can change over time and things can be misinterpreted. And so I think the general consensus from what I've heard, and a lot of the rappers actually have come to me being like, I love what you do just in the fact of Elvis, and that's what showed me like the wholeheartedness. Like it's not just about, who's popular today. It's about taking care of the history that's even come before us. And that was something that I stopped me in my tracks. And I'm like, you know what? Thank you. Like that is what I'm trying to do in the long run. Because
Yeah.
Memphis, yeah, like you talked about the news, it's not always gonna harp on the best cycle. Like the news cycle is always like, hey, let me throw something in there that maybe bad has happened, but there might be 10 good things that have happened and they don't want to talk about. And yeah.
So besides doing Get Girl Records, you're also restoring this stuff. So like how did you get into restoring? Because I would be nervous to like touch something and be like, I'm gonna break this. I know it. I'm gonna make it worse. So like how did you get into restoring and doing that?
It's a good question because I have dogs, and I my dad's job when I was growing up was a pretty cool job, and I accumulated a lot of autographs. And one day I had this thing, and it tore. It was an autograph, and it was a Tom Cruise autograph, and I
Oh.
got broke my heart. And I was like, what am I gonna do with this thing? And I started watching videos on like repairing tears and just knickknacks, and I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't know you can actually fix these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I started like getting like I got this autograph, I got the wallet, and I've got some like posters, and I'm like, you know what? I started to learn that these posters they're linen backed, so you're able, the older ones at least too, they wash them out and they actually clean them, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think my gen or my younger generation or even in between, they don't really know kind of like where to start. And sometimes even asking the question is like, oh, you know what? It's just too much of a headache to take care of it. But I'm like, you know what? If I can even bite the cost, learn how to do it, and then take those tips and tricks and say, hey guys, I'll offer you, to teach you how to do it for free. Like that's really what it's about. But, I think there's a lot to be learned. And that's where I think Elvis as a whole, he's a cool guy. See, like if you've kind of grown up with him, kind of like I was 5 years old when I learned about Elvis, and now I'm 25, almost 26, and he's grown up with me like through the eras. Now I'm like, dude, restoring your stuff. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting old.
Well, in the Elvis community, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm a newbie. I'm only, 3 years into this. And so it's like I came in through the Elvis movie. And so
Okay.
like just like I'm astounded by people who've been fans for, decades, like they don't get sick of the music. Like they don't like, get sick of it. Like there's just so many layers to being an Elvis fan, whether it's the community, whether it's just like you just learn so much about him and there's so many nuances to him for somebody who is so simple and just, so down to earth. And so, what are some of the things that have most surprised you about Elvis as through your Elvis journey?
You know, what surprised me the most about him is that, first of all, the impact, because a lot of it hasn't even been talked about. I mean, we're scraping the surface on that. But
Yeah.
second, really the perspectives. Like what's blown me away about Elvis is there's always a perspective of something he was doing. Like I don't know if somebody in his house was just walking around with a note, pen, and paper and was like, he's wearing this today, and subject is, I'm like, who who's staring at this dude so much that we have all this information on him? We as a collective, we could solve the world's peace problem. Like, I mean, we know where this man was on this date, and I mean, like, we could catch cheaters for a living. Like, this is
Huh?
crazy.
Um, so speaking of kind of being in the past, I have been asked before about like, do I think that being an Elvis fan is living in the past? Now, what do you say to somebody that would say that?
Not really because he's grown up with me.
Yeah.
Um, I loved his 50s music when I was a child. I loved his 60s music when I was a preteen and teenager, and I loved his 70s music when I had my first heartbreak and I cried my eyes out and I was like Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain should not be playing in my car right now. So, when people who want to live in the past can live in the past. It's your own choice to do so. But if you move forward, and I think that's where Gateway Records comes in aspect, like, yes, we have the historical side of things. We're like an archival for the records. But at the other end of it, we're printing vinyl records. We're still making statues that are gonna, commemorate the legends and, do things more on a national scale. And so no, I really think it's everyone's choice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're showing it through what you're doing of, bringing Elvis still to the forefront and having him influence what you're doing today. So, I mean, what you're doing is very modern. So, like, definitely not living in the past, but having it influence the future. So, I think
Yeah.
I think that's great. So how this is a big question, but how would your life be different without Elvis in it?
I will tell you that, we all go through like those weird phases in school. I went through that weird Katy Perry phase in my life where like Elvis took a back seat, and I just want to forget about that because I just don't, I don't know, man. There's something about it. There's something about him that's like he was the runner of it all. Like everyone mimicked after him. If he made a mistake, well, everybody else would see that mistake and make the same. It was almost like the Regina George kind of effect. So like the whole, like what I love about the whole idea of Elvis is like, no, he's just, kind of timeless in himself. But I feel like my life would be a little bit more embarrassing. My life would be a little bit more tiring, and I would probably be really annoying and basic. So no.
Well, he definitely gives us, I think he gives us a grounding too because of like who he was as a person. I feel like we're better people for being Elvis fans.
Yeah, I said, let me tell you something. I sat down at a Nashville Waffle House, and this guy sits next to me, and he puts a quarter in the jukebox, and he stirs his coffee, and I had my 3 6 Mafia thing on, my hoodie on, and he was like, "Oh, you don't know about this music, kid." And I looked at him, and I'm like, I showed him a picture. I was like, I collect Elvis posters, and I restore them. Da, da, da. He just looked at me. He's like, I gotta shake your hand. I'm like, listen, you can win over any grandfather. You can win over any old man. Just say, I love Elvis Presley, sir. And that's just end of story. So
Yep,
I feel like
yep.
he's a peace treaty. He's a Switzerland. I mean, except my grandmother. My grandmother gives me beef over Elvis. She's like, but I loved, what was his name? The dude that he hung out with all the time. I'm like blanking on his name.
Oh,
Tom Friend. There's like a
Tom
picture.
Jones.
Tom Jones.
Mhm.
So my grandmother is a huge Tom Jones fan, and she's like my Italian grandma. She barely speaks English. She goes, "No, I know like all the extra makeup." I'm like, "Grandma, you're not dissing on me right now." And I saw Priscilla like a couple months ago, and she goes, "Again? Okay, Grandma. Last time I tell you I do anything, don't call me. Bye."
Yeah, my mom was, I was like, Mom, what was it like growing up with Elvis? And she's like, I was a Ricky Nelson fan. And I'm like, Ricky Nelson compared to Elvis? Like,
Didn't he steal his haircut?
yes, he stole everything. Like he was the cheap man Elvis. Like I couldn't even do it, but it's fine. I mean, do you feel a responsibility as an Elvis fan to carry that on, to carry the legacy on and get it right?
The fact that he grew up alongside me in a way, yes. I started going to kind of like this meditation group, and this girl who runs it, she was like, I've got this weird feeling that like something about you and Elvis, like you were like in a past life, like a really like close friend or a like family relative. And I'm like, don't tell me that whack thing. Don't tell me that. But I'm like, really? She goes, but I just feel your energy is so pure towards it. And the whole initiative that I keep thinking about over the years, I grew up, obviously with Elvis, and I'm like, I just felt like he's helped guide me in times maybe I didn't know the answer to where I should go. And like, yeah, I feel that Elvis has actually like been like a little bit of like a spiritual guide in a way. Not like in a freaky deaky way. I'm not like, oh,
Get it.
I
I get it.
go get your altar. I need it. I'm gonna start making that my sacrifice bin. But no, I mean, I'm just like, you know what, man? There's no reason the universe has put me into the seat I am today with Project Pat, Elvis Presley Boulevard, doing all the stuff I'm doing. If it wasn't for something, and if I'm saying to myself, hey, I'm gonna make mistakes, I'm gonna live and learn, but I'm doing it for the ultimate goal of two people, and that's God and Elvis, and that's gonna kind of figure it out in a way. And so I believe in it in a way. I believe in the universe doing its thing, you know?
So, what does being an Elvis fan mean to you today?
It just means the responsibility to like do the right thing. Maybe always keep the idea of like what would Elvis do in mind, right? Like take care of the past and do it for the future because w- if we leave it in the hands of higher powers like our government or like, entities like enterprises and stuff, it's always going to be a commodity or something that's going to be difficult for fans to get. Because also like, suits and stuff like that, Elvis's autographs and whatnot, they're very difficult things to buy. And there's fans that deserve to have a chance to own part of his legacy and also develop their own story in their own way and not feel like they're going to buy a rental payment out on their house for it. So, yeah, it's the responsibility factor of just like, if you love Elvis, if you love music, you're welcome. Just come hang out.
I appreciate you talking to me so much today. This was really great and very educational. So, again, I appreciate your time and thanks again.
No, thanks so much. I appreciate being on.